Hello and welcome to the Blues Kind Show, a show for kind blues. So, it's a couple of weeks late, but I wanted to do a BnF recap, some of the messages from the night, and what I sort of think it means in the context of the trade period having just finished. Um, Before I start, I just wanted to quickly ask that if you like what I'm doing, please like, please subscribe, leave a comment. But otherwise, let's get into it. My most recent videos have been quite long. I'd like to try to keep this one a little bit down if I can. So firstly, big congratulations to George Hewitt, a really deserving winner. I thought he was clearly our best player this year. I think he grew in a couple of areas. I thought he was an excellent foil in terms of being a second inside midfielder to Paddy Cripps. But I think where he ended up becoming a little bit more notable was honestly his ball use and his help in the spread game. He averaged a career high number of disposals. He's not the sort of kick that'll take on the hardest kick in the world, but in terms of sort of, finding that 20 to 30 metre target and just moving the ball on, he was one of the better parts in terms of our ball movement this season. That, in addition to how hardworking he seems to be, how tough he is, how good he is in contested situations, really, really wrapped for him. And the sort of excellent player that you would want to build a club, maybe not around entirely, but he can definitely be a big part of the foundation. Because if it comes out over the preseason that guys like Jagger Smith and Cooper Lord have been following him around, I feel really confident that, those two young men will be getting a lot of good advice in terms of how to be a proper professional, how to adhere to team standards. I just think that it's excellent across the board. Where I wanted to go next is just to have a quick look at the leaderboard. And look, I'm not going to pee in your pocket and tell you it's raining, but I do want to try to keep things positive. So just a couple of quick shout outs. One is to Nick Haynes. He came fourth overall in our BnF after missing a lot of football in the last couple of years with the Giants. For those of you that don't know, Nick did an interview at the start of the season where he said that he missed a lot of football because he'd had an issue with taking too many anti-inflammatories because of the pain associated with playing professional football. And it ended up messing up his stomach and he lost a bunch of weight. And basically he just was not healthy enough to play. So then we got him for not much. He's been able to fix his health issues, and he plays every game this year. I think that he's really selfless. He sacrificed his game a little bit at the end of the season just to be able to play out of position. He often played on a wing, just so that we could fit some more young guys into the back line, which I just thought was excellent, honestly. He ended up coming really high in the league for marks. I think it might have been top 3. Came fourth in our BnF, a guy we got really cheaply, worked really hard. Just honestly a really, really good output for a guy like Nick. Next, I wanted to give a big tick of approval to Ollie Hollins. Again, played every game, and I think he's really brought his game forward. Because we were missing Nick Newman, when he was playing in the back line this year, Ollie, he was a lot more responsible for the ball movement of the team than he maybe had been in his previous 2 seasons at the club. I thought he showed more than enough to suggest that he's going to get to 200 games for the club. And for a guy that in his first 3 seasons has barely missed a game, he's continued to develop and grow his game to come top 10 in a BnF in his 3rd season. Ultimately, really awesome stuff. And finally, I wanted to touch on a player that I absolutely have a bias for. I'm declaring it now, but I was impressed with him nonetheless. Zach Williams came 9th in our BnF, kicking 22 goals from 19 games. And I think he showed quite a bit after moving. He moved into the forward line later in the year last year, but he got to play the full season there this year. 22 goals from 19 games. That's on track for over 25 if he played every game, he probably kicks about 28 goals. Really good season. And you might say, but he still missed a few games. Compared to how many games he'd been missing since coming over, 19 for him is excellent. I'm hoping that it shows that he's over the worst of his injury issues And, going into the last year of his current contract, he's able to repeat this year's effort, sort of play that, roughly 20 games, kick over 20 goals, and be a really big part of our team going forward. The other part that I really liked is that I think he's sort of indicative of where this team might like to go. He got injected onto the ball, or at least high half forward for a lot of the year last year, and was really critical because he's got excellent movement by foot. He's quick, but also great sidestep, very evasive. In addition to that, though, he's one of the few players that actually lowers their eyes when they go inside 50. He would hit some really good targets, and, he was a bit on his own in that regard. So hopefully we'll be able to beef up that area of the ground with some of the inclusions, and he won't be alone in that regard. But ultimately, I thought Zachy had a really strong year, and hopefully it's on to bigger and better things. So I wanted to touch on a couple of the speeches, because I thought they kind of illuminated a lot about the club and maybe where it's going. Before I get into it, I fully acknowledge that words in the AFL, or said by people associated with the AFL, often mean jack shit. They often mean very, very little. But just because some things that people say don't mean much doesn't mean that all things said by all people in all contexts mean nothing. And, we're all adults, and I hope that we can all use a bit of critical thinking and sort of consider, well, what do these words really mean, and to what extent am I expecting to be bound by them? Because you can say a lot of meaningless things, or you can say things that are intended to be used as a standard. And I feel that's a little bit of what went on at this particular event. And I wanted to start with Adam Cerra. Adam said, after a frustrating year last year, I just wanted to get on the park. To almost get a full season, I think I took a step in the right direction and got on top of a lot of issues I was having. I wanted to call this part out because I think it's fair to say that I'm someone who's taken Ches for granted a bit. He ended up coming third in our BnF this year, and he was leading it until he got injured with like 3 games to go. He was down in terms of his kicking form, but that could, one, be explained by the injuries that he was having, because I think it was a lot of hips, hamstrings, and back sort of stuff. So could definitely change your kicking form. But then also, I think he could be really big for us going forward. I think that Adam Cerra is maybe better than I was giving him credit for, and I need to own that. I think that for us to get the best out of Cerra, though, it might be worth moving him out of the midfield to half forward or half back. Letting him be a part of the midfield rotation, but given next year the starting midfield is almost certain to be Cripps, Walsh and Hewitt, there's not that 4th spot for Cerra. Given that he is as good of a player as he is, very good midfielders are typically better than very good, say, half-backs and half-forwards. I think he could go to half-back or half-forward, be more talented than the player that he plays on pretty much every week, and have a bit more impact than he would otherwise playing as the 3rd or 4th inside mid. That's just my opinion. The part of this that I liked the most, though, was what he then followed up with. He says, Cripper and Vossy put it really well before. We take full ownership for the year, and we won't sugarcoat it. We've got the responsibility of representing Carlton and wearing the jumper. We let ourselves down, let down the fans. There's no other group I want to be part of and grow into the future with, and I can't wait for what the future holds. Now, I'd encourage you to go watch it. It only goes for 3 minutes, his acceptance speech for coming third. I thought he was being really earnest and really authentic when he said those words. I got a very strong feeling he genuinely wants to be part of this group, and that also he takes full ownership of, his part of the failing of this year. To me, it read a lot like someone who's got a bit of a point to prove. And when you consider he missed most of 2024 with a variety of injuries, him saying that it's a step forward his year in 2025, I think is actually kind of fair. If he goes uninjured this off season, he will get his first sort of uninterrupted 24 months. Next year, I could see his form being greatly improved again. So personally, I think that he made a lot of good points about his own trajectory as a player, but he took a lot of responsibility, and he seems like he's on the same page as Cripps and Voss, which, as one of our senior players, it's really important. So personally, I was really impressed by someone that maybe I'd underrated a little bit in the past, and just wanted to give him a little bit of a tip of the hat, because I think he thoroughly deserves it. I wanted to discuss the captain's speech, because I think there was sort of two big takeaways that came out of it for mine. The quote that I really like was, it's a bit long as all the quotes I'm going to read are, but he starts, because what's coming and what I can't wait for is the noise, the big games, the big moments and the expectations. If there's one thing I've learned over my 12 years of playing for the Carlton Footy Club, you have to learn to love this and you have to thrive in it. If you can't meet the demand, you have to do the work to build yourself up to thrive in those big moments. The moments are coming, and you want those moments because it means you're in games that matter. That's what makes sport so special. There will be obstacles and challenges next year, but always remember the way forward with any obstacle or challenge is not running away or going around it. It's facing it head on and going straight through it together. I want to start at the end. There was a lot of emphasis in that last sentence. It's facing it head on and going straight through it together. There was a lot of rumour that Carlton was a fractured group this year. The playing group was fractured and splintered, and people had their own vested interests, and some didn't like the game plan, some didn't like the injury management, some didn't like different things around the club. Cripps makes the point abundantly clear. You can only succeed by doing it together. And it's not about trying to find ways around it. You've got to go through it. If this is not, a call to arms, I don't really know what is. I really liked it because it's in Cripps' sort of usual way, which is couched in optimism, and, he's very frank. He doesn't, use a lot of flowery language, but I also think that he does a really good job of not coming across as too much of a hard ass or a know-all or anything. He wants people to be there. He seems a joyous guy. And personally, I thought this message was great. The other part that I want to touch on, though, was the start, where he says, what I can't wait for is the big games, the big moments, and the expectations. If there's one thing I've learned from playing for Carlton, you have to learn to love this and you have to thrive. If you can't meet the demand, you have to do the work to build yourself up. Now, that could be a shot at certain players that are not doing that work, but what I ultimately really like is I actually thought it was quite a non-judgmental way of saying you have two choices. Be ready or be working towards getting ready to thrive in big moments. Because Carlton doesn't have the luxury of sneaking up on people. We're too big of a club. We've been starved of success for so long. The second people think we might be half decent, we get a lot of publicity. And so I really liked what Cripps said. Cripps has spoken at length that when he got into the league, he was nervous and, not a confident public speaker and, just a country boy from northern WA, like northwest WA. And he didn't necessarily, have the bravado of someone that could be a club captain, but he worked on himself. So hearing this from a guy like Cripps, I hope gives people a lot of confidence of it's okay if you're not there yet, but let's get there. Let's do it together and let's make it a focus. Let's not try to hide from the expectations. Let's not try to hide from the difficulties. We can achieve more when we do it together if we're all pulling in the same direction. And where I sort of then wanted to move on to is Voss's speech. a few quotes that I really liked. The first is, as a leader, I fell short on what was required. That has been a difficult reflection. I let you down and that sits really uncomfortable with me. I feel like Carlton has been a club trying to find its identity for a while because everyone wants to revert back to how arrogant we apparently were. I say apparently, I'm not old enough to remember, but apparently how arrogant we were, and, you know, we'd fix everything with money and, you know, screw what the rest of the league's doing. We don't need to do it. Apparently all the way through the aughts, we were very much like that as well. You know, there's reports of people like John Elliott saying, like, we don't go to the draft. Like, we don't bother doing the things that the rest of the league does. And so when you hear a lot of people from Carlton's storied past talk about the modern age, for me, I find it really easy to sort of tune out because they might have known what was successful in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They don't know what it takes to be successful now. So their opinions aren't necessarily all that valid. What I think, though, is that a lot of those voices carry that old Carlton arrogance. Michael Voss just said, I let you down. I fell short on what was required. Could you imagine another Carlton, like a great of the Carlton Football Club ever saying those words? To me, it was so refreshing. It was so honest. And it would take, honestly, a bit of a nitwit, sitting in Michael's chair to be like, no, I did great this year. This year was awesome. No, it was awful. We fell well short of the mark, and it's tremendously disappointing. And as much as I want to be the sort of fan that, like, you know, is like, no, let's all stay together. Let's keep it together. Let's not start tearing our own down. I could understand why people get so angry about it. But what I'm really hoping is that the people that think Michael Voss should have got booted can take a little bit of comfort from this. One, it shows that he actually agrees with you, in the sense that you both agree that Michael Voss didn't do a good enough job this year. I'm of the view that having a failure shouldn't mean that you automatically lose your job in any walk of life, because people learn through their failures and their successes alike. So I think the fact that he came out and was so forthright in terms of owning it is not only good for the future, it means that he actually accepts the problems that he's had, and you can't fix problems that you don't accept that you have, but also the tone it hopefully sets for the rest of the group. I hope the rest of the group can all sit down and say, Mitch McGovern, if you're with us next year, yeah, too many one-arm tackles from me. Charlie Curnow, when you're on the plane to Sydney, yeah, I probably shouldn't call for the ball over the back like this quite so much anymore. I could go through every player, but that just feels a little bit mean. The point is, those who remain, I hope they can all look at, their strengths, weaknesses, successes, and failures and learn from all of them now, and not try to hide when they have failed, because we all do, but we don't get better if we don't accept it. The next quote that I really liked was, a former coach once said to me, I can't always tell you what winning looks like, but I can definitely tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like blame or victimhood. It isn't anger disguised as passion or threats described as standards. It isn't about whinging about what has happened. I really like the last bit of it. It's not anger disguised as passion, threats described as standards, or whinging about what's already occurred. This is a line in the sand. For everyone who wants to talk about the club that we used to be, bad news, it doesn't exist anymore. For all the fans that say threaten to not go to the footy anymore, please follow through with your threat. All those people that say, oh, I'm not going to renew my membership, do it. That's absolutely fine. If you don't want to come anymore and you don't want to participate, then don't. But if you're going to keep participating, just maybe stop making the threats. But where I thought this was mainly directed in terms of those outside the club are dialer quotes like Bruce Matheson and other wankers, because that's what they are, that will call up their mates at the Herald Sun or, call up Dwayne Russell so they can get a segment for 12 minutes just to complain about the club, even though they haven't been involved for 30 years. They're not very useful people, and people like you and me shouldn't be listening to them. That we just shouldn't be. I would really hope, Mick Warner, that you stop taking the calls from Bruce Matheson. You're not going to. And all you're trying to do is inflame us. Like, it's real jackass journalism, but, here we are. So what I want my fellow Carlton supporters to take from this is, it is not anger disguised as passion. Passion is passion, not anger. Threats describe the standards. Threats might try to achieve a standard, but it is not the standard. It's just a threat. And it's not about whinging what's already occurred. Look, we're all disappointed that we haven't won for a while. I don't remember us ever winning a flag. I'd love to remember us winning a flag. That would be cool. So I don't see the point in complaining about, the lack of success. But I hope some people will come along for, that arm of the ride with me. That would be awesome. But I think it's also quite telling, and it is probably directed at certain people that were at the club last year. I get the feeling from a couple of the players that have now left that there was some finger pointing, that there was complaining about maybe the environment or the Melbourne bubble, or that they didn't feel valued enough, even though at the time of reporting, Carlton were offering equally the most money, Jack Silvani. But what I'm hoping is that these messages resonate deeply with the players, that it is not about blaming each other. It is not about threatening each other. It is not about complaining. It's about working together and being one unified football team. Voss said something that I thought was quite interesting, and it's that we shouldn't be fighting in here. We should be fighting out there, meaning we don't fight our own because it's the navy blue versus everyone else. Collingwood have applied that sort of a mindset really effectively to their players, and I hope that's what we're able to adopt. No more booing our own, no more blaming our own. That doesn't mean you have to accept everything, but there's a way to go about it. Let's get fierce with everyone else. Don't focus your anger inwards. Celebrate our own, and if you want to boo anyone, boo Braden Maynard when we get to play him. Boo other little shit players like Harley Reid when we play. I actually like Harley Reid, but don't worry about it. Boo them. Cheer our guys. Make them feel the love that we have for them. I understand that some people get real narky and aggro at the players because of how much they say they love them. Nah, don't get narky with love. Love with love. What are you talking about? But the last quote that I want to quickly touch on is that this is our reality too. It's about putting Carlton first, whether you are whether you are the person in the stand or the person in the jumper. It's a privilege to carry the responsibility with pride. I really liked that comment because it reminded me a lot of things that Chris Davies and Nick Austin have been saying. Since the trade period ended, both of them have made comments to the effect of, we want players that understand the responsibility of playing for Carlton, which taps into what Cripps is saying. We're going to have expectations, so you better want them. You better be willing to thrive in them, and if you can't yet, work on it. Let's get there together. I think when you look at the acquisitions of guys like Ollie Florent, Will Hayward, they have played in a lot of finals for Sydney. I think they've both played in 2 grand finals, both losing granted, but they have played a lot of finals footy. And as role players, they're the sort of guys that I think can help take us to another level. You hear of guys like Liam Reedy and his ridiculous work ethic. He didn't start as an AFL player. He was apparently very undersized, as in underweight, when he was first going around. So he went and played for the Frankston Dolphins and, rest is history. Plied his trade under, Luke Jackson and Sean Darcy. And, he's coming over to us with a waffle best and fairest and a waffle premiership. These are the sorts of guys that, while we might have lost the absolute top-end talent in Charlie, I think in terms of how deep the rest of our team will go. But more importantly, the attitude of this team has been workmanlike, like George Hewitt, like Ollie Hollands, like Nick Haynes, like Will Hayward, like these guys that I've, carefully sprinkled throughout this episode. This is the vision for Carlton going forward. I feel this is the message the club is trying to tell its fans. We understand where we went wrong. We weren't resilient enough. We probably crumbled when we shouldn't have. Too many people pointing too many fingers at other people and not looking inward. And we haven't respected ourselves and the fans. The quote again from Cerra, "We let the fans down." I thought that was awesome. I know it might seem weird and also a bit of stating the obvious. The amount of people that you don't see taking responsibility. Just to tell a quick side story, Ross Lyon cancelled a press conference. He just up and left because people asked about Leckalia and how they backflipped on Leckalia. He cancelled the press conference. That's bad accountability. To see so many of our senior guys, to see so many guys coming into the walls of our club who seem all about hard work, commitment, doing things the right way, it makes me think we are in a better position than we were last year. Last year, I felt like we were fraying at the edges going into the season, given how 2024 had finished. Going into next year, again, I'm not expecting the world out of us, but I would not be stunned if we're a better team week to week, quarter to quarter, because we're more disciplined, we're more unified, we're more engaged, and we actually keep to the standards of what we're meant to be doing. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like or subscribe. If you want to engage, push back, agree, give me some ideas, disagree, whatever you want to do, please leave a comment. If you want to contact me, you can email me at blueskindshow@gmail.com. That email is in the bio of the actual channel. Thanks everyone for watching, and as always, go Blues!